So I've been in country all of one day. And so I'm a little bit underprepared, but I know my story, and I would invite you to ask as many questions as possible as I am kind of just sharing what it's like to be a business leader. And most of all, I just want to make sure that I'm answering questions that you are curious about or that you feel like you want to learn about and that are pertinent to help you by maybe define what your future looks like. So, my name is Tami Steggall, and I'll just give you a little background about where I came from. I grew up in Saudi Arabia and I came to Utah for college. And I started college when I was 17, and I kind of just fumbled through it. I didn't have any direction, didn't know what I wanted to do. So I dropped out of college and I moved to Denver, Colorado, and luckily got a great job in public and municipal finance, writing public bonds for like roads and hospitals and things like that. And I did that for about 5 years until I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go back to college. I'm ready. I feel I was emotionally and mentally ready, and I was actually craving it. So when I was 25 years old, I went back to college. I moved here to Utah and got a degree in architectural design. And I did that for 15 years. And I like to say that I loved it until the day I didn't love it anymore. And so what was happening was in 2007, 8, and 9, we had a really aggressive recession and things were becoming difficult for my industry. And it was just getting really hard to like make a dime. So during my years as an architectural designer, I was a really avid hardcore cyclist. And so I would train really hard. And there just didn't seem to be like any bakery where I could just get a good, high quality treat that had the wow factor that was worth my time, my money, my workouts, and, just spending my dollar bills. So I started creating my own recipes so that on my free eating days when I wasn't training, I could have like the wow factor right here in my mouth. So over time, I had developed all of these recipes and I created this like secret brand called Where's the Goods that, sorry, I get a really dry throat when I talk. And I would take it to my clients because I feel like you have to honor your clients. You have to honor the people that make your business successful. And as an architectural designer, I had to get my own clients and manage my own accounts. And I just wanted them to always know that I was grateful for them because they made my business possible. But during that time, I just kind of watched my savings and my money just drop, 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 and disappear. And I thought, if if I'm going to lose all my money, I'm going to bank on me. So I cashed out my last $10,000 and found the building that I'm currently in. And because I was an architectural designer, I could draw up my own plans and get them all certified through the city. And I just put in sweat equity into the building, and I grew that business from that initial $10,000. And it was an IRA that I had cashed out. And so I think one of the things that happened is I gave myself permission to fail. And I said, if I fail, that's fine. I have my degree and my career and my experience to fall back on, but at least I'm trying and seeing if people like what I do. And people did really like what I did. And my original model was pre-portioned frozen cookie dough that I wanted to sell that you can bake at home because I was a professional working mom, and that was one thing that I did was I would make cookie dough in bulk so that I could just pull one out and bake it when I wanted to. And I thought surely there's other people in the world that need something quick that is high quality and not low quality because we've all, I mean, I'm assuming you've all purchased something out of the freezer section that is just really terrible low quality. So that was my business model, but I created a bakery case so that people could have free samples before they purchased what they wanted to buy. And immediately, like instantly, I just was a walk-in retail bakery. So we have a walk-in retail bakery in downtown Salt Lake City off of 300 West. And to this day, we still give unlimited samples. You can walk in and you can taste anything in the case. And what works about that model is that people are really grateful. They're grateful that you're generous. They don't abuse the system, and they may have walked in to purchase one cookie and they end up buying a dozen. And so this was the business model that we ran for 11 years. We were just a walk-in retail bakery, just one location, doing about 1.8 million a year, year after year after year. Like we didn't have to do anything. We didn't market, we didn't advertise. People would drive from St. George or Logan or Ogden or Brigham City because at that time we were kind of just the only cookie company on the block. And then 11 years in, we started to get like some disruptors in the industry. And a disruptor is somebody who like recognizes like, ooh, this is a good business model. It really works. And I think it was about 2018. There was probably like 6 or 8 other companies that just popped up overnight. And what it did for our business was we didn't see the effect of it right away, but um, slowly over time, as some of these major brands who are now like worldwide, definitely nationwide, people would write in and say, I love your cookies so much and I really, really miss them. But there's this one brand on the corner of my street. So I've been going there. Like they were like confessing, that they were cheating on us or something. But so what I did in 2018 was I launched into Kroger into 168 stores in 5 Western states, and which was going really great. So I didn't necessarily want to franchise my brand because what I cared most about my brand was the quality. We always cared about quality ingredients that were clean, that delivered that wow factor. And I feel like real ingredients taste really good. And when you start cheapifying them with, uh, you know, artificial or hydrogenated ingredients or things that cost less, then that experience goes away. And so I felt like that was my strength, that I was selling quality and I was a destination purchase, and people were willing to go out of their way to get something that was a little bit more expensive, that was more high quality, and that delivered on its flavor. But we also delivered on our service and our care and keeping of the customers. And so we were a destination experience. So that's kind of how we held our ground in the market. Was one thing that's good about free market economy is that it keeps products, it holds brands hand to the flame, where competition is a good thing because it helps you delineate and differentiate and decide who you're going to be in order to set yourself apart and or to survive. And so it's better for the consumer because it's either better, quicker, faster, cheaper, and then the consumer gets to decide what they want to buy. They want to buy cheaper, they want to buy, a pile of sugar, or do they want to buy an experience? And we know this with every brand, whether it's a cheap body spray versus a high-end perfume, or a economy car versus a luxury car. And it's true in pretty much just about every industry. So anyway, I did architectural design for 15 years. I've now been operating my company for 17 years. I'm also the voice behind a food blog called By Me Industries, where I honor farmers, millers, and ranchers, and I tell their stories, and I transform their products into recipes that the consumer can make it. I mean, sorry, not the consumer, that the reader can make at home. So I'm like trying to empower people to like live delicious because I think sometimes we've forgotten the art of cooking. And then just Friday, I graduated in a master's in Gelato University in Bologna, Italy. And then I'm here now. So that's my background. And um, Whitney gave me a list of questions that you might be interested in, or maybe did they present the questions?
Yeah, they have questions prepared as well.
Okay. If you want to start hitting me up with questions, I'm free to answer your questions. Also, this morning, I kind of just typed up answers to all of the questions that Whitney provided that she can forward to you in an email. But if you want to start asking me questions, or I can just kind of share some of those questions.
I guess my question would be like, with like taking out your IOA during the recession, would that like scare you, I guess, and like, that's about the other.
So I think for a lot of people it would be scary, but I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so I moved 21 times by the time I was 18. So I was kind of used to like starting over, you know. And I feel like you can always make money. Like if you lose all your money, you can make money again. Like, and I'm not very attached to like material things. So I have maybe a higher risk tolerance, and I feel like I take strategic risks that are on the lower end of the risky scale. Like I didn't have any loans or any debt for probably the first 16 years. I took out my first like major small business loan last year because what I did is part of my pivot. So when 2020 hit, that was kind of when the game really began to change for us. That year, we didn't experience any drastic changes or revenue losses, but 23, let's see, 21, 2, and 3 was just harder, harder, harder every year. And I had like this nest egg of savings that I had set aside for Ruby Snap. And I kind of had this motto that I would save like 25% of our revenue, so that if we ever had anything major that we needed to purchase, we already had the money sitting in the bank. For example, one time we had a car drive straight through our building and it cost us 40,000 to fix it. So I was able to just like go into that fund that was untouchable and repair the building. But 21, 2, and 3, we just like I burned through all of my savings and I just felt like I was just fighting for the right to stay alive, you know, because the cost of goods was going up faster than we could adjust our pricing. And we had a major price increase. We hadn't had any major price increase in 11 years. And so, but I had to determine what is the threshold that the buyer will continue to like pay for goods. And so what I did is I spent all of 2023 becoming a certified manufacturer and getting all of my certifications. And then I spent all of 2024 finding those clients, like just like letting people know I existed and that they could trust us and we were capable and we keep our promises. And it took me about 18 months to kind of get our first major client. And so now what we offer is private label branding. So I can do recipe development for companies and label it in their brand. So we have a major grocery chain that we're servicing right now in their brand. And we've had our brand in Harmon's grocery stores throughout Utah for probably 15 years. We've been in Whole Foods for about 16 years. And then we can do like nutrition panels for people because a lot of people don't understand how to do nutrition panels. We can do like help people with their branding and packaging because that was something that we had to just learn and adapt to. And the thing about business, by show of hands, is there anybody here that wants to be an entrepreneur? I think sometimes you don't know if you want to be one. So we've got like 5 people. The thing about being an entrepreneur is you have total autonomy and you are in control of your destiny, but you're also living it and thinking it and breathing it 24/7. So you have to be like really disciplined in terms of setting boundaries for your personal life versus your work life. And I mean, I would never go back, but I guess the one thing that I would say is that no matter how you decide to earn your money going forward, make sure that you are deliberate about it. Make sure that you love those moments. Like make sure that you pick a company that is aligned with you and don't be afraid. For me, I say I I only have one life to live. So I'm always going to live the best version of myself. And I'm always going to give the best version of myself with the company that I'm working for. And I work for my employees, I work for my customers, I work for my clients. So all of those people are my bosses. And so I always show up with my best performance every day because I don't want to have any regrets later. But please interrupt me if you have any questions. I'm like very open to questions. We'll go here and then here.
So I have a question about how you said you had a high risk tolerance.
I have
Sorry.
a low risk tolerance. Yeah.
Oh, you have a low risk
Yeah.
tolerance. Okay. So do you feel like that was like developed, or do you feel like people are just kind of born with that? Like if you have a higher or low risk tolerance, like people
I think some people are just like born with a higher risk tolerance by nature, but I'm like really methodical and organized and I like to plan things. I'm saying maybe I said I do have a higher risk tolerance than probably the average person, but in the world of business, I'm kind of like make really safe, calculated decisions so that I'm not like homeless and broke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I'm not afraid to lose money and I'm not afraid to have nothing. Like, I feel like you can repurchase a home, you can rebuild. I've never had to like lose my home. I've never had to start over, but I've had seasons where things don't go as planned. And I feel like that's a really important thing to address that, if you fail at something, it's not a failure. It is definitely a learning catalyst that teaches you how to course correct and do that thing better. And you'll never go back and make that same mistake again. So it's something that allows you to actually be better than the day before. So I think like some people are so hard on themselves as young startup entrepreneurs, like they just are so afraid to make a mistake. And mistakes are what make you great. Like they're the things that like rise you up. So let's go with your question.
Well, now, you had your bachelor's in interior design, is that correct?
Yes.
And then you started your business, and now you were in Italy for your master's in gelato.
Mhm.
Where are you taking that education towards? So are you planning on like opening gelato businesses in Utah? Like, what made you take the decision, and what will be the outcomes to you?
I think it was just a little bit of a passion project. I really love to learn. In with gelato, it's a lot of food science, a lot of chemistry, a lot of algebra, and it was almost like I just wanted to see if I could really do it. I had daydreamed about turning our corporate offices into a gelato shop, which is 2 doors north of our bakery. But each time that I went to university in Italy, because I spread it out over a period of time, I felt like my business just picked up, and it was probably because I worked so hard to get out of the country that I like really worked those clients, and then they came to fruition while I was out of the country. So I feel like every time I would re-enter, I was like, well, I can't like give up a good thing, and I don't want to disrupt the goodness that's going on in Ruby Snap. So I just kind of putting it in my back pocket. I really don't want to add it to Ruby Snap. I already like trademarked the brand. I already have the logo. I already have the menu. I already have everything to launch, but I want to launch on my own terms when I feel ready. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. And, yeah.
You said you're a mother, correct? I saw somewhere that it was 7 kids. Okay, that is right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, how do you balance that? Like, I'll refine my question. Sorry. It's so you seem like you're very put together, very goal oriented, and I'm just wondering, do you like consider yourself sort of like an outlier? You know, between being a business owner and a mother of 7 kids. Do you think you have like a superhuman tolerance for just hard work? And do you think that's why your business is so successful?
I do think that I have a lot of just natural grit. I have a lot of natural organization. I'm also very like stable. Like I don't have like a lot of highs and lows. I'm just like, this is my life. I want to be happy, you know? And so I am going to control the storyline so that I can stay happy. So when I launched Ruby Snap, I think my youngest was probably about 4 or 5. And I'm an empty nester now. But when I was building the company, I kind of did a lot of things undercover. Like I worked really hard at night while they were sleeping. You know, I woke up, I tried to make it so they almost didn't know I was a working mom. So I woke up, I did breakfast, packed lunches, got into the school bus, waved goodbye, boogied to work, and then I worked really hard. Like I made use of every moment of time, and then I would leave at 2:30 so that I could get there and be there at the bus and be like, "Hi, mom," you know. And we would do homework, dinner, baths, bedtime, story reading, all the things, so that they didn't feel cheated out of a mother. Like I feel like my number one priority is always my family. And there was a time, one of my daughters in her junior year, because we sat down and kind of like had like a family council, like, you know, mom's going to start a business. It's going to be really hard. And sometimes I won't be around. But if you ever feel like it's too hard, just speak up. Like you're more important than the business. And so her junior year, she was like, I just feel like you're always gone and you're blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'll close the doors. Like you call it and I will close the doors because you are so much more important than a business. She's like, no, mom, I'm like so proud of you. Like, and so I have today, they're always like, thank you for like just teaching us work ethic. Almost all of them worked there at some point in time. And never was there any pressure for them to like carry on the family legacy. I'm like, this is my dream. I realize it probably isn't yours, but you can work here. And when you work here, you're an employee. And I am not your mother at work. I'm your mother at home. Like, so you're gonna have to work harder than everyone else because they'll be watching you.
Yeah.
So, but they have work ethic. And for those who are still young enough to like have roommates and things like that, I'm like, man, my roommates do not know how to work. And she's like, I'm so grateful that you taught me how to work and that money just doesn't magically appear. Like you gotta go get it.
Yeah.
So they've all done really well for themselves and they're doing their own things, so.
Right.
But family was always like super important to me, so. Any other questions? I can defer to my cheat list here.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I am
sorry.
very involved in it because my parents are starting a gelato business and
Oh,
everything.
okay.
So that's why I'm like you. The second you said that, I was like, what would you say that is something that will separate like that from like as a consumer? Let me rephrase my question.
Mhm.
As a consumer, what would drive me to say I want to eat gelato today? What is something that like could help a gelato business to say like, hey, like this is something that is standing from us and something that we can benefit of having and marketing towards others.
And because your family has a gelato shop,
They are starting one, yeah.
they're starting one. Okay, so I say you're always your best customer. Like I'm selling to me. I created my products to please me. And I know there's a billion other me's out there who want the same quality that I demand. So what would you go out and buy? What is your price threshold? And then think of it in terms of like, what would entice you to want to stop at that certain gelato shop? For me, I'm very visual. I am very like graphic in nature. So I really think a lot about the brand up front. Thinking about your trademark up front is really, really important. If you open a business and you have no idea if you're going to grow up, if you want to like expand it, get a trademark and get it for early, get it even before you start, because it takes 18 months to secure your trademark. And then I think it takes about a period of 5 years where you are a registered trademark, where like it's yours and forever. Like it's nobody can attack it after that. So we had an experience. We started out as My Dough Girl. It's based off of a World War II theme. And we had a large corporation that has like a cute little fluffy character. I can't say their name publicly, but who sued us for our trademark. And they had, I don't know, $32 billion. And we had at that time like 100,000, And so we had to give up our trademark even though we owned it. Because we hadn't. So the quicker that you secure your trademark, the quicker you can have that safety net. So that would be one thing I would like, but you have to have your brand in place. Like what does your logo look like, and put a lot of thought into the way your brand looks, because that brand is going to stick with you for a really long time. And it's really worth putting forth the money for an attorney to do a search on that brand, because they will do searches on likelihood of confusion. And so, for example, we were My Dough Girl, we became Ruby Snap, but the other one that I considered was MISS Dish. And there was some competition with another brand that wasn't cookie related, but we wrote a letter to them and said we want to consider this name. If we tried to trademark it, would you sue us? And they were like, no, you're fine. And so we could proceed with it. I didn't choose that name, but just really be forthright about what your brand is going to look like over a long period of time. Like, does it feel classic enough to have longevity? Is it like exciting enough to make people go like, what is that? Like there's just some brands that you are just instantly endeared to.
Thank you.
So any other questions?
I you hear it like all the time, I guess, on the news and stuff, but I was just wondering, like, and you mentioned it at least twice, it's
Mhm.
happened with you. With like an ever shifting environment, I guess, how do you like prepare, I guess, for something that could possibly happen? Like, for instance, 2020 COVID and stuff like that, as you mentioned. Like,
Yeah.
how do you prepare for that?
I mean, there's some things you can't prepare for, like nobody knew there was gonna be a world pandemic, and that really changed the landscape for the entire world. But you always have to be learning, you can never stop learning. You always need to be thinking about the future, so when I bring on employees, I train them really well so that they can be autonomous and they are empowered to make decisions on behalf of the company. And they're able to run the present. So they run today, I run the future. So I am always thinking, what is the next way we can capture a new client? What is another way we can present our brand um, that that opens the doors for new opportunity for us? So I'm always like really thinking ahead, like 2 to 3 years ahead. And sometimes that's kind of hard to do because, like, in the world we live in, things are just changing so fast with AI and things like that. But you always have to figure out how to be the differentiator, like what sets your product apart. What sets my product apart is we focus on clean ingredients that and recipes that are really flavor driven. And so that you're like, wow, I've just never had a cookie like that, you know? And still to this day, I feel like a lot of companies can't touch our flavor profiles. So that's our differentiator. Um, Also, we're able to help other brands and I just didn't want. I started to tell the story. I had opened 5 stores. Kroger had asked us to open, like how they have a little Starbucks kiosks. They had asked us to open our brand that way in their stores. So we started it and we opened 5 stores. And I just was like, I hate this. Like, this doesn't feel genuine to me and I don't want to do it. Like, and my team members weren't happy. None of us liked it. And I had a clause in my contract where I could give them 30 days notice to say, like, I want to go out. And I'm like, I'll still sell you frozen dough. You can still sell it in your doors, but I don't want to do these. They're called MTO stores. I don't want to do the MTO stores anymore. And they're like, well, they're tethered together. So if you pull out, you're pulling out of the whole contract. And I was like, great, I'm out. Like, but immediately myself and my team were just so much happier. We just realized that like franchisee type experience wasn't for us. And so I was like, well, how am I going to grow my company if I don't open other walk-in retail stores? So the current retail store that we have is like our flagship where we kind of get to show off our talents. We get to remain in craft bakery. We get to explore recipe development unlimited and then put it in bakery case for you to try, you know. And then we're not limited by franchise model that kind of restricts you to like fewer product SKUs and more like just homogenization where everything just becomes like the same as everybody else, you know? Because the only way to do that model is to kind of like cheapify your standards. So I decided to become a private label manufacturer for, so I could do bulk bake off for like food service industry, like hotels and restaurants and coffee shops, or I can do other people's brand. And so I kind of like bring my revenue through the back door that nobody sees. All they see is this cute little bakery, you know, but we really have a whole business that's just kind of generating behind that storefront. And so, but any other questions?
I have a question about like how do you maintain like the balance between your quality and your demand? So you mentioned how you don't want to
Between quality and what?
and your demand. It's like you have growing demand, but you don't want to like go into like manufacturing or like having others manufacture so you can keep up with your quality?
Okay, that's a good question. Basically, we've been doing it long enough that we're really good at it. And we have kind of like a production queue. And so our production kitchen, we have our bakery, and then 2 doors north, we have our corporate offices, and then the production facility, and then like a palletizing warehouse freezer. Every morning, the bakery delivers their need of what they need for the day to the production kitchen, and they make it and deliver it back fresh to the bakeries. But when we get in bigger orders, so yesterday we got an order for 5 pallets, which is a pallet has 104 cases on it. And we're just efficient. We can make about 550 dozen an hour, and we're kind of like small but mighty, and we just apply the same protocol that we have for ourselves to the client. And then when we're working with the client up front, we give them realistic deadlines. Like, we are small but mighty, but if you want 24 pallets, which is 2 truckloads, by next week, we can't do it, but we can do it in 3.5 weeks, and if you're okay with that, then we're good to go. And people are usually okay with that. You just make them aware of what your capabilities are. And companies are really willing to work with you if they really like your product. So, and then you had a question.
Oh, yeah. Just in reference just your branding and on your website, it mentions part of your brand is sort of that post-World War II, like American idealism. I was wondering where you maybe obtained that appreciation having grown up in Saudi Arabia. Where does that come from?
I was born in Arizona, and then my family moved to Saudi Arabia, and my parents stayed up until they retired. And then, but they also lived other places like India, just but mostly Saudi Arabia. Sorry, repeat the question though.
Where does your appreciation for that sort of pop art, like Pax Americana, or sorry, Pax Americana?
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
I think I'm just like, I think just coming from that architectural design background, like a creative mind, like creativity just begets more creativity. And I'm like very graphic minded. When I was in college, all my professors tried to talk me into going into graphic design, and I was like, no, I need to be a designer. And but when I started a business, I didn't have any money. But I was like, well, I know how to run like all these different like architectural programs. Surely I could teach myself how to run a graphic design program. So I just used like known phrases, and I created all of our branding and packaging, and I still do today just because it's fun for me. I don't know. I'm a very visual person, and I'm drawn to, things like that.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer.
Good enough.
So, any more questions? How much time do I have? Like 10 more minutes?
Yeah, about 5.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to maybe talk about is like, is establishing your core values. So the way that I established my core values for my company was I developed 5 words that represented our core values. And my 5 words were fresh. So we make our dough fresh daily. We bake it fresh throughout the day. We sell you today's cookie today. And at the end of the day, whatever's left, we donate to the community. And it has to be a valuable community need, like Ronald McDonald House or adult rehab or Shriners Hospital, something like that. Genuine, we have to be like genuine about the way that we are conducting business, the way that we interact with our customers, the way that we interact with our clients. We just have to be genuine in all of the ways that we conduct our behavior and our service. And then destination is what we do worthy of a destination purchase? Like, are people, because when I first started, our neighborhood is still kind of a little bit ghetto-y. It was like, it was super kind of scary when I started, and my parents thought I was crazy, and I was the first one in that neighborhood. And now it's like really grown up so much. But I thought, people are gonna go out of their way to a scary neighborhood to buy a really expensive cookie. It better be worth the journey for them. And so I just kind of kept that as one of my core values, is like, is it worth the destination? And then wow, does it have the wow factor? And then do it yourself, because my business model was pre-portioned frozen cookie dough for people to make fresh at home. And then so if I'm like moving along through the journey, and if I feel like I'm kind of starting to get off course, I can go back to those 5 core words and just say, like, does this meet those 5 core words? Am I honoring my brand goals? I feel like that's really important to think about. Just always pivoting for strength. You know, your adaptability determines your survival. Leaning into your strengths. I feel like I talked about that. Just, we have high quality ingredients and recipes. We've been able to do like large scale catering. If the U of U calls and they want 2,000 dozen cookies, we can say yes, we will provide that for you. Our largest single order was in one purchase for the walk-in retail bakery was 4,000 dozen that we shipped nationwide. So that's something that we've been able to do that other companies can't do. So we get a lot of orders that way, because they might call that company on the corner and they're like, yeah, we can't get you. We can't do that for you. But if somebody called and said, I need a really, really big order, like they're really uptight, like, is it too much to ask? Can I have 500 cookies by tomorrow morning? And we're like, yeah, we could, yes, that we can do that. So that was a talent that we had. The recipe development for other brands, we're small, a very small to medium sized manufacturing capabilities. The other thing is finding and establishing maybe like 5 peer mentors. So when you feel like you need, well, a peer mentor doesn't have to be formalized, like they don't even have to know that they are your peer mentor, but maybe some people like in your industry or related to your industry, but definitely a few outside of your industry. And what that does is like, they can help you sort of navigate maybe some of your blind spots, gain perspective, and help you just kind of navigate certain business terrain. And what I've found is that, and I hope these questions are pertinent to those of you who aren't planning on running your own business, but and then offer something of value in return, so that you're not just like leeching their knowledge, you're also giving something back, and you're like developing this relationship. And I had a equipment manufacturer that I purchased some of my technology from. And he didn't know it, but he was my best mentor ever. And he would just be like, yeah, if you do that's how I figured out I could make 500 dozen an hour. And he's like just on his calculator, like, you can make 500 dozen an hour, but if you just did this. And I was like, okay, so I did that, you know. And he's like, and don't forget to get your HACCP plans in place, because one day you're going to need them, which is hazardous critical control points. Hazardous critical control points. And you have to prove these things to the FDA and the Department of Agriculture, at least in my line of industry. But just like have those mentors that you can identify, like even if it's just like somebody you admire. You know, I've admired some of my former bosses, I had a category buyer that was my first category buyer for Harmon's, who's now moved on to other companies. But I am always like, Gordon, like, I'm gonna be talking to this company in Texas, what do I do? You know, and he's like, well, you should really, in this scenario, you can consider 15% margins where I would normally consider 30%, because he knew, like, he's in that industry. So make sure that you can like look around you and like find your mentors, even as you're just even entering the business world and getting your first job. Like think about like who do you know that you want to emulate, that like inspires you. Like I had a boss. In fact, I had like 3 really great bosses that I felt like, ooh, yeah, if I ever own a company, I want to be like that. You know, I want to be that kind of boss. So, any other questions you can think about?
I think we're just about at time, but yeah, any last questions for?
How many employees do you have?
We have 30 employees. So, and they're really amazing. We have 6 in the production kitchen, and then we have basically 4 in management. One of them oversees our distribution, and then the balance of those are in the walk-in retail bakery. So it's also really expensive to operate a retail walk-in location. Whereas we only have 6 employees in the production kitchen, but we could get, you know, a $200,000 order out of the production kitchen off of 6 people, or we can make, you know, $4,000 a day in the bakery with a whole ton of people, because it's very labor intensive.
So Tammy, if you had one piece of advice to give to college students starting out their career, what would that be?
Okay, I actually have a plan for that. And I wrote it down. Okay, do not be afraid. Mistakes will happen, but so will success. So basically, it's the person who stays the most consistent. It's not the smartest person in the room, it's the most consistent person in the room. And I feel like when I was in college, I heard that. I started out in civil engineering before I did architectural design, and I just felt like such a fraud with the math and everything. And one of my fellow students said, he was in his PhD at this point, and he said, I am not the smartest person. I'm just the most consistent one. And that really stuck with me. But don't be afraid of your own imagination. Don't live a life of coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like, you have one life, you know, don't live it with regrets. Like, enjoy the moments and be grateful for everything. Like, I'm grateful I get to be here. I'm grateful I was able to pay tuition. I'm grateful that I have a car to get here. I'm grateful that I have legs to get on the bus to get here. Like, I always think of things like that. And then definitely give your dreams a chance. And it's okay if you fail, just get back and try it. Get back up and try again. Like, just don't be afraid. Don't overburden yourself with work. Just wake up and commit to do your best every day. Like, just show up with the best version of yourself, because when you do that and you keep all those little promises to yourself, it just builds this self-confidence, and it just grows and grows. And just give yourself grace. You know, don't be hard on yourself.